How's it going? My name is Brad Solomon. I'm the customer care manager at Banks Chevrolet, and I just wanted to do a quick video because we've been getting a lot of questions from our customers lately about leasing. Because leasing has become very, very popular again over the last couple of years, and a lot of people want to learn about, what leasing is all about. Many people have never leased a vehicle before. They've only heard sort of bits and pieces of what a lease actually is. Some people have heard horror stories. They don't quite understand it. And so I felt it made sense to do a nice video to help you understand exactly what a lease is and and answer some questions that a lot of customers do have about leasing. So you may be wondering how does a lease actually work? And easiest way to think about a lease is that you are specifically paying on the vehicle for the amount of time and only the amount of time that you actually are going to be using the vehicle. And you are also not only just paying on the vehicle for the amount of time you're going to be using it, but you're also only paying on it based on the intensity of your usage of that vehicle, right? So if you only need the vehicle for 3 years, and you're not going to drive it that much, then you can custom fit your payment to fit that particular need. So a 3-year lease for maybe only 10,000 miles per year. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go. You can lease almost any vehicle. So there are certainly some that do not have lease programs. It's not quite like financing in that there have to be programs available for the particular type of vehicle that you want to lease. But just about every vehicle that we have here, just about every new vehicle that we have here does have a lease program of some type. That includes regular sized trucks, HD trucks, small cars, all of the SUVs, everything has a lease program. One of the nice things about leasing is that you can choose your term. You can choose the amount of time that you want to have your vehicle for. So if you like to trade every couple of years, then you can go as low as 12 months really, but most of the time it's 24 to 36 months. Or you can go 48 months, 60 months. It really just depends on your driving habits, how long you want to have the vehicle for, and also how well the manufacturers are incentivizing the particular lease term that you're interested in going. Because different terms have different incentives, different rates, different residuals, and we'll get a little bit more into that. And as I said before, you can also decide to structure your lease payment around how many miles per year you need. So if you only need 10,000 miles a year, great, you're going to save money on a monthly basis. If you need to have the vehicle more, so if you need 12, 15, even 20, 25,000 miles per year, you can do that as well. We can structure your payment however you'd like. So some of the factors that affect your monthly payment are, well, first of all, obviously price, right? So the MSRP, the sticker price, and the price that you actually purchase the vehicle for. That does have an effect on your monthly lease payment. However, it has a lower effect than you may think because the other factors that go into a lease are very, very significant. So one of those factors is the residual value, and that is the future value of the vehicle. So what's the vehicle going to be worth at the end of the lease as a percentage of its current value? And that residual value is determined by the manufacturer, okay? And so we're gonna discuss that in a little bit more detail. In addition to that, the interest rate is going to affect your lease payment and the term. But let's kind of jump into the residual value a little bit. So the residual value is essentially what, we'll take Chevrolet for instance, is what Chevrolet projects the value of your vehicle is going to be at the end of, say, your 3-year lease term when the vehicle has, say, 36,000 miles on it, okay? So the way that your payment is determined is on the price of the vehicle that you're looking at minus the residual value of that vehicle. So that stands to reason that the higher the residual value as a percentage of the price of the vehicle you want, the lower your monthly payment is going to be. And that's the reason that the residual value almost has a more dramatic effect on your lease payment than the price and the sticker price. So residual value is very, very important. And again, it's predetermined. So let's just take a $50,000 vehicle for example. We'll say that the MSRP on a truck is $50,000 and the residual percentage is 60%. That means that the manufacturer is essentially saying that at the end of whatever the lease term is, say 36 months, we believe that the vehicle is going to be worth $30,000 because the residual, again, is 60%. Now that residual percentage changes. So if you go to 24-month lease with 10,000 miles a year, your residual value is going to be different than if you get a 48-month lease at 15,000 miles a year, right? Because the values of those vehicles are going to be different at the end of those two terms. So the residual value has everything to do with how long you go and how many miles per year you need. Another factor in your lease payment is the rate. And the rate is determined by the manufacturer, or by the leasing company, I should say, because different leasing companies are going to offer a sort of a different set of rates. But it's all predetermined. Sometimes the rate is going to depend on the term you go, but that again is not always the case. Of course, in a finance transaction, typically longer terms result in higher rates. That's not the case with leasing. Oftentimes you'll see a 24-month term has a higher rate than a 36-month term. And the other major factor that affects the lease payment is the term. So sometimes a 24-month term is just going to give you a lower monthly payment than a 36-month term. There really is no perfect way to know. Much of it simply depends on what the manufacturer is incentivizing, what they're feeling the vehicles are going to be worth for the specific periods of time that you'd be taking out the lease for, and what the incentives are. And the incentives are the single biggest thing that affect your lease payment. So that's what we're going to get into next. Leasing a vehicle has just as much to do with what incentives go into your particular lease. So what manufacturer incentive, consumer cash, bonus cash, lease loyalty cash, competitive lease cash, all of these various factors are going to bring your lease payment down, okay? So the incentives going into a lease have just as much to do with it as the price you pay for the vehicle, the rate that you get on the lease, and the residual value, and the term, right? So all of these different factors go into your lease and sort of get jumbled up like in a blender, and then they spit out a monthly payment. One thing to keep in mind is that for every $1,000 in incentive or cash down that you put towards a lease, and we'll get into cash down after, every $1,000 on average, say for a 36-month term, is going to change the payment by about $26 a month. Okay, so if you get an extra $1,000 incentive today because General Motors happens to come out with it, then that just saved you about $26 a month in your lease payment. So it's very, very important to understand the effect that incentives have on a lease. Now, we talked briefly about down payments, because many times it seems like you have to put money down on a lease, because most of the TV ads that you see, most of the ads that you see in the newspapers include a significant amount of cash down in order to get to their advertised lease payment. Banks doesn't tend to do that. We typically show lease payments with no money down or only first payment due at signing, but there are certainly some lease ads that require $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 down plus first payment. The reason that those ads include that down payment is not that you have to put that amount of cash down in order to get the lease. The reason that those ads include those down payments is so that they can advertise the super low monthly payment that's going to be very, very attractive to you, right? So that when you walk by the TV and you see that very low $219 a month lease ad on a $60,000 vehicle, you turn and go, whoa! And then, but you may not see in the fine print that, you know, there's $4,800 due at signing. That's the reason that you see that. But the reality is, most leases don't require any cash down whatsoever. As a matter of fact, that's another area that you're able to customize. So you can put no money down, you can do $500 down, $1,000, $2,000 down. Again, every $1,000 that you put down is going to change the payment roughly $26 a month, but you may not need to put any money down if you want to just do a sign and drive lease, which basically means that you put nothing down. The other area that you may want to think about is your trade-in. So a lot of times people have questions about, well, how does my trade affect the lease? It's very simple. It's just like having cash down. So say you have a trade that's worth $4,000. You can either put that trade toward your lease and use it as equity or cash down, and that'll reduce your monthly payment by roughly $104 a month if we're using that $26 per thousand math. Or you can keep the $4,000. We can give you a check for it and you can go take the vacation that you've been thinking about, or whatever you want to do, right? So a trade is not anything to worry about if you're getting into a lease. It simply acts as cash down towards your lease. Now, if you owe more money on your trade than it's worth, then that's also a very simple scenario. We simply take the amount of money that you owe on the vehicle over and above your vehicle's value, and we put that into your next lease, and it changes the monthly payment accordingly. And certainly you can decide how you want to handle that. If you want to make the higher payment in your lease, you can. If you want to pay that negative equity off, you can do that as well. One of the biggest questions that people have about leasing, and really the biggest concern that people have about leasing, is what about damage to the vehicle? Am I going to be liable for any bit of damage that I do to the vehicle? Am I going to get hit with a big bill at the end of my lease? That's not what I want. So, a couple things to keep in mind. Yes, when you lease a vehicle, you are essentially renting it from your leasing company, just like you would rent an apartment. The only difference is that in a lease, you have a lot of options at the end that you don't necessarily have with an apartment, but we'll get into that in a second. Right now, we're specifically talking about damage to your vehicle. So there's a certain amount of wear and tear in a lease that the leasing company expects is going to happen. So a little ding here and there, a little scratch here and there is not going to cost you massive amounts of money. It actually won't cost you anything. As a matter of fact, when you lease a vehicle, you get a little card that you can hold up to the vehicle that has, that has a hole on it that says, if the dent is smaller than this, don't worry about it. You get a certain amount of dents per panel, you get a certain amount of scratches per panel that's acceptable, and we're not going to send you a bill, okay? Now, if you turn the vehicle in with a cracked windshield or bald tires, or if it's a truck and you turn it in with a bed that is completely scratched up and beaten, then yes, you will be responsible for that, because that is damage over and above what is considered normal wear and tear. So just keep that in mind when you lease. Now, a couple things on that subject. First of all, there are lease protection programs that will do exactly that. They will protect you from above average wear and tear. So if you want to make sure that you don't owe extra money if you have a big scratch in the side of the vehicle that you're leasing, then you can purchase an excess wear and tear package that would protect you in that case. As far as things like the truck bed, say you are leasing a truck and you know that you're going to be using it to haul lumber and things that are probably going to do damage to the bed, it's very simple. We have bed liners that you can purchase for $549. They can be rolled into your lease. Half of it is actually residualized into the lease, so it really only changes your monthly payment by about $9 a month. And then you don't have to worry about damage to the bed as much anymore, because there's a bed liner, a spray-in bed liner in there for you. So that doesn't need to be a concern for you, honestly. And it actually gives your truck a better look. It gives you a little bit more flexibility, and you don't have to, and you have more peace of mind over the term that you have the vehicle. So the long and short of it is, don't let the chance that you might do damage to your vehicle prevent you from even considering leasing as an option, because there are plenty of ways for you to be able to get by that and still have it be a great option for you. So speaking of options, many times people want to know, what are my options at the end of the lease? The good news is you've got plenty of them. So number one, if you lease a vehicle, what most people do at the end of the 36-month or 48-month term, whatever it is, what most people do is walk away from the vehicle and get another one, because you at that point might want a new car, right? Your leased vehicle might be approaching the end of the manufacturer's warranty. You want to try a different color, you need something bigger or smaller, right? And you have the flexibility to be able to do that in a lease. So the first thing that you can do is you can simply walk away from the lease and get into something else. Either buy or lease another one, whatever you want to do. The second thing you can do is you can buy the vehicle that you've been leasing for the last 3 years. And many people decide to do this as well. So this sort of gets rid of the age-old argument that, well, if you lease something, you don't own it. That's not really true. because there's no reason that you can't own a vehicle that you've been leasing. Here's what happens. Remember before we talked about the guaranteed residual value, the future value that is determined by the manufacturer at the time that you purchase the vehicle or at the time that you lease the vehicle. That is the amount that you have the right to buy the vehicle for at the end of your lease. So in our prior example, when you've got a $50,000 truck with a 60% residual, you know throughout the entire lease term that you maintain the right to buy that vehicle for $30,000 at the end, okay? So that's the second option. You can simply buy out the vehicle if you really like it. The third option is that you can trade it. So say you do fewer miles than you were actually allotted at the beginning. You bought 15,000 miles per year, but you ended up only really needing 10,000. There's a good chance you might have some equity in that vehicle. You may actually owe less money on it than it's worth. And in that case, as long as you come see us prior to your termination date, we may be able to trade you may be able to trade that vehicle in and use the equity that you have toward another vehicle, which is a really great option. So that's option number 3. Now, a fourth option, which sometimes applies, not always, but sometimes applies, is that you can take advantage of a pull-ahead program. A pull-ahead program is a program that allows you roughly 3 to 6 months prior to your lease termination date to get out of the lease early. What happens is the manufacturer makes your last 3 to 4 monthly payments for you, and they give you a rebate toward a new vehicle. And they of course do it because they want to keep you as a customer. And it might work out great for you because A, you might be ready to get into something new because you just are. B, you may be approaching your mileage limit, so it might be a good idea to get into something new now versus waiting. And just a lot of people like to get in front of the lease end situation so that they're not under pressure when they actually have to give the car back. So that works out really well for many people. So that's 4 great options that you have at the end of your lease. So you might be wondering at this point, okay, I think I might want to lease something. How much vehicle can I get? So for what I want to pay, how much vehicle can I actually buy or lease? And the answer to that question is that there's really no good answer, unfortunately, because as I was mentioning before, every lease is a little bit different because there are so many different factors that actually go into calculating a lease payment. So I want to just demonstrate a few of those leasing anomalies for you right now so that you kind of get, number one, you can get a feel for what I'm talking about, and number 2, you might get a better feel for what your particular vehicle would lease for. So we're going to take this regular cab Chevrolet Silverado for example. This truck has an MSRP of $37,740 and it has a lease payment for 36 months of $400 a month. Okay? Now let's come over here. And this is an LT double cab. So not only is it a higher trim level than this white truck over here, which is a work truck, this is an LT, so it has a lot more equipment, and it's a double cab. So it's got extra space in the back. This truck has an MSRP of right around $44,000, $44,330. And it has a lease payment of $329 a month. Everything else is equal. There's no shenanigans. We didn't add in any extra rebates that don't already exist on this truck. It just so happens that the residual value on this truck is significantly higher as a percentage of the MSRP than on the regular cab truck. It also has $4,500 in incentives that the regular cab truck does not have. Now, if you want to get a regular cab truck, then more power to you. You should get a regular cab truck if that's what you need. But what I want to illustrate here is that leasing gives you the opportunity to get more vehicle for either the same or perhaps less money. So let's take a look at another example. You won't have a problem with it. All right, next. All right, so let's take a look at another example of a leasing anomaly that doesn't make sense, really. Conventional wisdom would say that it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense in the leasing world, and you can take advantage of it. This truck is an SLE GMC Sierra. It's a crew cab SLE. Nice truck, okay? It has basic power equipment. It's gonna have heated seats. It's a nice truck, right? Sticker price on this truck is $47,965. I just ran a lease on this truck at $493 per month, okay? And that's no money down, 10,000 miles a year, 36 months, okay? $47,000 roughly sticker price. Come on over here, check this out. This truck is a GMC Sierra Denali. This is almost as loaded as you get. This truck has leather interior. This truck has running boards. This truck has forward park assist. It is completely loaded, okay? To give you an idea of how loaded it is, it has an MSRP of $58,020. You would think that the lease payment on this would be significantly higher than the SLE because it's $10,000 more expensive. But in fact, the lease payment on this truck is $485 a month for 36 months. No money down. Again, no weird rebates, no games, no shenanigans. You know that's not how we roll anyways. That's just the way the lease on these two trucks shakes out. So, the question is, are you telling me that I can get a $10,000 more expensive truck with tons of equipment for less money than a $10,000 less expensive truck with not as much equipment if I lease? And the answer is yes, absolutely. That is exactly what I'm telling you. It's great. It's a great offer. Let's go take a look at one more. Okay, so let's take a look at a little bit of a different class of vehicle, right? Let's look at some smaller cars. So we're gonna take a look at a Chevy Trax and a Chevy Cruze, because to this point we've really only looked at trucks. But I just wanna show you that this leasing weirdo, leasing anomaly carries itself to smaller vehicles as well. So we'll take a look at this Chevy Cruze right over here. It's got a sticker price of roughly $23,500. Now for 36 months, no money due at signing. This car right here leases for $246 a month, okay? No money down. Now, if we look at this Trax, it also has, it actually has an MSRP of $23,600, slightly more. It's an all-wheel drive vehicle, right? It's great vehicle, right? This leases for $198 a month, same term. No money down, just first payment due at signing. Both of these, all these have first payment due at signing. It's about $50 a month less to get the same MSRP and to get it, to get an all-wheel drive. Again, that doesn't necessarily make sense, but it does make sense when you understand that all leases are a little bit different. A higher residual value is going to impact the payment. Bigger incentives are going to impact the payment. The MSRP doesn't have as much to do with a lease as you might think it does. And the best thing to do, the best way to get an idea of what your lease is going to cost you on a monthly basis is to call us or send us an email. And we will get back to you very, very quickly with detailed proposals, detailed lease payments that spell out all the information that you need to make an educated decision.